Hello, welcome, welcome. We'll give folks a second to join us. Hello, hi Utkarsh. Great to have you here. Utkarsh has been basically up for 24 hours almost, hosting all of the sessions, doing an incredible job. Great. So happy you all are here. So people will be joining us as we go along. But what we can do is we can go ahead and get started. So first of all, hi everyone. I'm Lizzie. I'm the community lead at ADP List. I am so excited to present to you guys today, introduce you to Alpesh Doshi. Coming from the UK, he's the founder of Kendra Labs, and today he's going to be talking about AI First, the firm of the future, a vision of what the new corporation and what it looks like. So really excited to hear more about this. I am admittedly an AI beginner. And I've already watched a couple of sessions at BeMore. I hosted one earlier on AI. It's really, really super interesting stuff. So excited to learn from you today. Everyone that's here, please say hello in the chat. Don't be afraid to comment. Let us know where you're joining from. What are you interested in learning about today? And then in addition to that, folks, you can add questions in the Q&A column on the left-hand side of the chat, and we will address questions at the end and go through and answer. Okay? All right, without further ado, I'm going to remove myself and hand it over to you.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everybody from around the world. Thanks for joining. It's been a marathon session. I don't know. I'm at 11 a.m. in London time. I know that there are people from all around the world potentially joining at different times. I'm Alpesh Doshi. I live in London. I work for a company called Kendra Labs, amongst other things. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about how generative AI and AI first companies are going to emerge and what's going to happen there, and how you guys can, leverage off that and think about your own firms and what you could do. So I'm just going to whiz through. Please put the questions on the chat. Happily answer any questions at the end of the session, or please reach out on LinkedIn and elsewhere, on Twitter and elsewhere, if you want to ask any questions. So let me just start with just what the hell's going on. As I'm sure all of us know, Gen AI has been massive in the media in the last 18 months, 2 years, since OpenAI released ChatGPT 3.0. But what we've really seen so far in the last 18 months, 19 months, is just lots of hype. But if you start going into any corporation or you start to going into any firms, the reality of implementation is pretty early. Sam Altman said it's having a huge impact. I mean, it is in certain areas, but if you go and talk to enterprises and companies and say, look, are you using Gen AI in anything? The reality is that there's not really a lot of production stuff going on at the moment, but it's going to happen. And we're seeing this now in the last few months. We're seeing it, and I think in the rest of the year, we're going to see a lot more. The reality is that to make change happen in companies is really hard. And then what that then does is give opportunities to build AI first companies from scratch. And you've seen, I'll talk through a couple of things that have happened so far, which are showing what the value of this stuff can be. So I'm just going to start really just talking about AI and what it is, where it comes from. If any of you in the audience has worked in AI, you'll know this stuff. So, it won't be anything new, but the AI landscape is pretty large. We've had deep learning and machine learning for a long time, the last 10, 15 years. And I'm sure you all seen the transformation of your lives using AI around, for example, when you log into your phone, whether it's an iPhone or an Android phone, using image recognition, that's using AI at the back end for computer vision and detecting your face, for example. So, and there's lots of machine learning. So many companies are using that. If you're using Facebook, there's hundreds of AI things running at the back end. If you're working in a corporate, if you're buying stuff online or you're on TikTok or whatever, there's a lot of AI being used, but mostly it's around machine learning and deep learning models. The new type of AI is obviously generative AI. Generative AI has gone crazy in terms of the possibilities of what it could do, but the applications and live applications of that are pretty early at the moment. Firms are just trying to get a handle on what use cases should we do for that. How can we apply this across our business? So my view is that that firms are going to become AI first. They're going to have to either build an AI first business, and there's so much opportunity to build new companies and build disrupt business models with this AI now, and also transition and transform companies. So you can see this graph, generative AI is definitely right in the nascent stage, but it's going to really transform everything. And actually the reality is, when you're using AI, you're not just going to use Gen AI on its own. You're going to use machine learning and other types of AI to do the work. It's never just one type of AI. It depends on what you're doing. So for example, computer vision, as an example, using computer vision to detect an image and doing video detection, then that push through using computer vision modeling, but also then pushing through Gen AI to understand the context of the text, right? So that's just one example. So the reality is, being able to understand that AI isn't one thing, it's many different things, and Gen AI is another capability around AI, but it's a really powerful and differentiated capability, which is changing really everything. So let me define what AI first is. I talked about AI first in the title. The question really boils down to, what is it? What is it? Why does it matter to anybody, and what does that mean? It really means that you're going to leverage AI across every business process, end-to-end, back-end business process. You're going to automate those processes. You're going to use generative AI to collect data, process data, make decisions. You can leverage AI to make new products and services. So the basic one people have been doing is chatbots. I hate chatbots, right? The reality is you can actually improve and use chatbots with Gen AI backend to actually understand customers and take action significantly better than existing chat systems that have been out there. And that's just one area where a customer can come to a company's website and use that and a chat thing to access any information without human intervention. And I'm going to talk about a use case around that shortly. But that's massively powerful, and we're seeing the change. You can do it in context, you can do it in language, whether it's whatever language it is, and it's done on the basis that actually it's connected to the back-end data, which is one of the biggest areas. So one of the most exciting things for me is that companies are going to emerge who are really going to disrupt the existing industry. So just as one example, in law, in the legal profession, AI first law firms, I think, are going to be pretty large. If you think about how law firms work today, there's a lot of back end, there's a lot of document and contract creation, which you can potentially automate using Gen AI with a human in the loop. So, you're not saying actually you're going to replace lawyers completely. What you're saying is the way the business model, the operating model works of a law firm is going to change significantly. And there's an opportunity to create new law firms because of that. I mean, that's what I see, is that there's going to be an opportunity to create new law firms, which are going to be AI first. And that will disrupt the market in many different practice areas over the next few years. So the example I'd like to give you is Klarna. Klarna in the last month or so has really started over the last, since the beginning of this Gen AI stuff, have really applied this in many different areas, and they're seeing massive value in that. They're reducing their workforce. They're saying that they're increasing their revenue, they're increasing their margins. They've created AI-powered customer service. So 70-80% of customer service people have gone. As it says there, it's doing the work of 700 humans. It's automating a whole bunch of the stuff that was all manual, and Klarna had large armies of people working on that. It's already cutting their staff. They've cut their staff by 1,200 people, and I'm pretty sure that's going to change even more. And it's saying they're going to be 2,000 employees, so they're going to less than halve their staff on all of these areas. So you can see that impact is huge, and a lot of that is Gen AI, a lot of that's automation. Things like using AI at the back end in business processes, all the business processes, whether it's marketing, finance, and operations, in customer service, in software engineering and build, all of that can be changed and operated and optimized using Gen AI. And so, what I see is there's going to be a massive shift and massive opportunity there. And so this is probably one of the first large-scale firms that I've seen who have absolutely embraced this, and they're already seeing significant benefit in their business. So what do you have to do, right? One of the biggest areas people forget is, unless you get the data fixed, unless you have your data organized, and lets you understand your data, and you go through the process to organize and manage your data, which then feeds into these Gen AI models to use and attach to Gen AI models to do those use cases, then frankly, you can't really get the benefits that you would need. There's data which is your own internal data. There's data which is external that you can use. So for example, if you're working, I mentioned law, you need to bring in data around the law. You need to use an LLM, which is specific to the law. And so we have to bring that stuff together. And until you get your data right across the business, you're not going to be able to do this. Now, you don't have to, it's not big bang, right? It's not all or nothing. You know, you're going to evolve your data landscape. But the way you use data moves from the old world of BI. So a lot of the modern data stack stuff was around BI, which is, hey, I'm going to do reporting, right? Which is going to change, right? The Gen AI stuff, the way you use data and you process data is different to how you would do it for a business intelligence and reporting solution. So how you take the data, organize it, structure it, and then apply it into multiple use cases and actually multiple LLMs is definitely going to be a big change that needs to happen. And you know, you need to do things like think about the validity of data and the life cycle of the data and the timeliness of data. You know, data changes all the time. So if you're getting new customer service information or transaction information in, you need to build a pipeline to take real-time transaction data into the LLM, for example, for a customer service query. So how you actually get data, process it, and make it available to a use case is definitely another area that you need to look at. What I see happening is that data will be used in different use cases in different departments. So it's in finance, operations, marketing, sales, etc. You know, you're going to use different data sets with different models for different use cases. So, you know, think about data as actually a sort of landscape of lots of different types of data. It's not just one thing. And you know, what will happen is you're going to use data for particular use cases, and you have things like agents. Some of you may have heard about agents, and agents will allow you to basically have intelligence around marketing, for example, and then things across the business will actually interact with that agent around marketing. For example, producing a white paper for a customer, right? So, but get the data right. You've got to get the data right and go through the data. And there's a lot of work. Actually, interestingly, you can use LLMs to actually get your data right. So one of the biggest areas that firms haven't really fixed is data quality. How do you fix a data quality problem to get consistent, accurate, complete data? Well, LLMs can help with that. LLMs can help you process the data, get it structured, and use it downstream. So think about that and see how we can do that. One of the other things I wanted to talk about is actually what does the technology stack look like? I'm sure most of you aren't technologists, so I won't go into really technical detail. But the technology stack that you use is also different. How you build the stack, how you build the components of the stack to use Gen AI is different. One of the things that is also different is how applications are built. So in this case, when you're using an app, apps are fairly static. You know, they're fairly confined. Whereas, you know, what's going to happen is you can build these dynamic apps which will be fed by generative AI documents, generative AI content. Yeah, so that's going to change. How you build and deliver apps is going to change. One of the things that I'm working on is actually being able to describe an app and build it and deploy it in like hours, right? So you can then build apps for every customer and do it to scale and do it rapidly, for example, if you wanted to. So how you actually build, deliver, and operate applications is going to change a lot. I mentioned Klarna before. You know, Klarna have just said publicly that they're going to get rid of Workday and they're going to get rid of Salesforce because, frankly, these tools are bloated, massive, and the functionality a firm will use will be a tiny percentage of what the functionality is available in those tools. And you can actually build your own CRM app really quickly using Gen AI. Why do you need to have a Salesforce for CRM when you can build a specific app for your service around CRM without the need to have that bloated stuff that you would currently do, right? So the technology stack is going to change, and the technology that you're going to use is also going to change. So where are you on your journey? You know, if you look at this, NFX built a nice little chart to talk about what the sort of maturity of Gen AI is in firms. You know, what the desire is to get to number 5, which is BA first. But what we're seeing is, you know, most firms are at this AI enhanced stage where they've implemented LLM model, maybe some LLMs, actually not a lot, mostly, machine learning type models. And you can implement, more efficient workflows with that, and that's what we're seeing. But the reality is, if you go and talk to people and talk to firms and say, well, okay, how much AI is actually used in production in most firms are not really there yet. So think about where you are in your journey, and think about how you can become AI first. Think about how you can change the way your business become AI first. Because frankly, if you don't do it, then somebody else will, and it will take your lunch. So you really have to think about how you're going to do it. So where we go next step. So, going back to summarizing some of the things I've said, you've got to embed that into every business process, in marketing, in finance, in risk, in supply chain, in operations, in governance, in data management, in software engineering and build. All of these things are going to use Gen AI somehow, and they're going to use different models, different data, but it'll be integrated into ideally into an integrated platform. And that will help you drive towards becoming an AI first company. The reality is, this is not about technology alone. A lot of this work is about changing your operating model, building skills and experience, actually building a really comprehensive data science team. You're going to need data scientists to understand how to manipulate and use these models to get the use cases you want. You're going to use large amounts of internal and external data. So, for example, if you're doing marketing, social media data from your marketing campaigns and marketing ads, you can bring that into context to help build your branded voice, for example. And you can then create and operate campaigns with other social media, with other models, and run those models, frankly, and do the planning and buying around your campaigns way better with LLMs. So the thing to remember is you're embedding it into every business process, and that's the key. It's a business process. It's a business change, and the technology is the enabler. So never think that it's just about technology, pick an LLM and off you go. It's really rethinking the business model and the business process and how you do things. So what are the business benefits? There are so many business benefits. One of the key things that I've seen is people are still trying to figure out what are the use cases that are going to be useful for us. One of the simplest patterns that I've seen in the market in terms of business benefit is very simple example, which is I've got tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of documents on one side, and I want to be able to, for example, produce a marketing proposal at the moment. So just take a real example of someone that we're dealing with. They've got thousands of documents around healthcare, and they create proposals, and they've got all this knowledge around their business. And today, when they wanted to produce a proposal for a customer, it takes them 6 to 8 weeks because they can't access all the documents they need to produce the specific report. Well, with Gen AI, you can ingest all of that document. There's a bunch of work to do around the LLM processes to make it available, and you can write a proposal customized for that customer with the context in which you're working. So it's cancer, for example, and you can do that in hours or days. Now, I say days because you're still going to need a human in the loop. You're still going to want to review this stuff. You're still going to iterate through to create the right documents. So increasing the efficiency and productivity is a huge opportunity. Decision making. Today, if you wanted to make a decision on anything, there's a lot of work. Yes, there are reporting tools and business intelligence tools out there to get the data and help you make a decision. But actually, there's a lot of work at the back end to try and get that data ready. Now, with large language models, you can ask hundreds, if not thousands, of questions tailored to any particular department way quicker than you would be able to before. And it's in context. It's tailored to the individual, tailored to the customer, tailored to the department. You can also start building new products and services more rapidly. I mentioned earlier about building code, right? You could build an app in hours, but customized to a specific use case, and that tailored to that customer, and manage it all end to end without spending all of that time on software engineering and weeks and months to try to do it. One thing to remember is humans in the loop. I've got humans in the bottom one intentionally because for the foreseeable future, in the next 1, 2, 3 years at least, humans are always going to be in the loop because we still can't rely on these 100%. We still need quality checking. You still need people to do that. And frankly, that's where jobs are going to change. Everybody's saying jobs are going to go, but my view is jobs are going to change. And the human in the loop part is one part of that. Some more business benefits, right? We already talked about customer service and Klarna and what they've done. And that's a real example. If you're a Klarna customer, you'll have seen that, or you've used Klarna, you'll see that. And actually, there's a whole bunch of, I put risks in here because everybody talks about risks. If you talk to any enterprise about risk, how can they identify the risk? How can they reduce the risk? So one big one, frankly, is cyber risk. At the moment, there's huge volumes of information coming through on cyber risk on your, if you've got a tech infrastructure on cyber and getting all of that information. Actually interpreting that data to find a flag and be able to take action on it is still hard. It's still hard. It still takes time. But this large volume of data, interpreting that data and actually uncovering some of the potential risks is definitely significantly more doable than it used to be. So what are the challenges of adoption? What I've seen is actually management buy-in is still pretty early. People saying, I want to do AI, but actually then talk about how and where and what we're going to invest in. What I've seen is that actually it's not been in the priority list, even though publicly you see lots of surveys from McKinsey and others saying, we're using Gen AI, we want to use it. The reality is getting management buy-in and then getting budgets to do it has been pretty difficult. The lack of organized data, one of the biggest things preventing people from doing this stuff is actually the data isn't in a place that they could use it for anything downstream. Skills and training, there's a lot of lack of skills and expertise out there to actually do this. You need data scientists to understand LLMs who can apply all the knowledge and expertise around LLMs, and it's just there just aren't enough people. Culture and people change is a big one. How do you change the way people think about this rather than being fearful? Because at the moment, everybody's going, well, I'm going to lose my job if I do this LLM stuff. People are afraid to do it. And I think it's better to look at it in a different way and say, what is the opportunity? How do we change the operating model and business model and new services that we offer and help and train and change the culture of the people in the business to help them adopt this faster? Because if they can adopt these tools and services, they're going to do better and you're going to do better. So actually thinking about it that way is a lot more beneficial, and to get adoption will be way quicker. So where should you do? What should you do? Where should you start? Think about reimagining every business function. So for example, finance, you're doing accounts payable and you have a team of 30 people working on accounts payable. Think about how to reimagine how accounts payable is going to work, or accounts receivable, or whatever else. You can really think deeply about transforming that and reducing the cost, reducing the inefficiency, reducing the risk, and be able to reinvent how that works. Now that takes time. This is not something that's going to happen overnight, but reimagining this stuff is definitely a key. I talk to companies regularly and they're saying, oh, we're doing a transformation. And I say, well, look, if you're doing a transformation, you need to think about how this AI stuff is going to be part of that transformation. Because if you don't do it now, you're going to have to do it later anyway. So you might as well think about it on how AI and Gen AI specifically will change every function of the business. You absolutely have to fix data without getting data correct and using data across the business and the infrastructure, the governance. I didn't talk a lot about governance, but data governance and AI governance is definitely a part of that. Think about that holistically, build frameworks, build data governance teams, build architecture. I'm an architect. I think I like always to talk about architecture. We've already seen developers take on doing snippets of code. So most of you, I'm sure, have heard of GitHub Copilot, where you use that. A lot of developers got 20, 30, 40% productivity increase. But actually, you can do a lot more. You can actually build whole systems. So one of the things that I'm working on is actually being able to build whole systems rather than just build a function on VS Code and use that to build a function. You can actually increase the developer velocity, actually producing more code faster in context with the business context to producing an application. So more things, embracing bottom up. So you don't have to do big bang top down strategy. You can start building small use cases, demonstrate the value quickly, like in 4 to 6 weeks, and start working that way. You don't need to try and do big strategic moves. You can start building individual small use cases and be able to get them live and get them productive. And then you can demonstrate, you can have metrics to measure how efficient you were. Because that's the way to get senior buy-in. That's the way to show the value and the business value around using this technology. Absolutely measure everything. Collect the data to measure everything, the productivity, the throughput, the efficiency savings, absolutely measure everything. And don't forget people. People are not going away anytime soon. People are going to be central to this. It's thinking about, okay, what are my teams doing now and how their job's going to change, and how do I retrain the people to be able to do that? How do I retrain my teams to be able to do that? And also think about what are the new functions and capabilities you're going to need. So you're going to need some new capabilities. So I mentioned data science as an example, but data science, for example, data ethics and AI ethics is a big one. We're doing consumer apps. AI ethics is like, how do I actually handle ethics within my business? What's the frameworks and the processes? What the tools do I need? So you're going to need to do. So I think that's it. I've been actually quite short, so I'm hoping that you got a good landscape of what an AI first company looks like and what you can do, and happily take questions that are there. Thanks very much.
Amazing. Awesome. Alpesh, thank you so much for that insightful presentation. I admittedly am an AI beginner. And this, to me, this felt like, wow, okay, I know that there's a lot that can be done. But what's helpful for me and maybe some folks here is like a visual example. So I wonder if we can do like a scenario where
Yep.
I give you like a prompt and you can tell me specifically what we could do to like implement AI. And I'm going to use an example that and anyone else, if anyone else wants to add a prompt in the chat, feel free to do so. But as an example, my partner is actually starting he's a CPA in the US. We're based in Europe, but anyway, he's CPA. We are starting a bookkeeping, like financial advisory firm. And what we're learning is, we're not learning this. It's pretty much common knowledge that accounting, like, different industries like accounting and finance and law as another one are super, super ripe for transformation. It's probably, I bet you get a lot of clients like this at Kendall Labs. Historically, have super manual processes, outdated technology. But I am noticing that like with our generation, I'm a millennial, my partner's a millennial, there is kind of a shift happening. I'd be curious from that lens as a prompt, like, we are trying to start a small to medium, finance, accounting and bookkeeping firm. What are some of the AI things we should be thinking about from the start? Let's say, like, should we be thinking about this more from the start, or should we like wait until we have, a good base of clients? What are some kind of tangible examples you could give us of what we could do?
Look, as if you're thinking about an accounting firm and you're thinking about financial advice, absolutely, I'd be thinking AI first from now. You've got to build a firm that's going to be AI first. If you don't do it now, you're going to have to do it later. And therefore, you can provide better advice. You can provide more efficient advice. You can automate the back-end processes as much as possible. You can provide better customer service to the customers. So bookkeeping, really dull, really boring, doing it by hand. You'll have a bookkeeper by hand collecting the transactions. You could look at a process and say, you know what? Hey, Mr. Customer, just give us this stuff in an automated way. Like, even send an email, it doesn't matter. You can then push that into a business process, extract, for example, a transaction that I have done, and automatically populate your accounting system with that. So that's one simple process where today people outsource bookkeeping to you, as an example. At the moment, you have a bookkeeper by hand doing this stuff. Well, you'll get rid of 90% of the work a bookkeeper will do. The bookkeeper still needs to validate some of the pieces, but you can do that. Financial advice. Today, if you wanted to do financial advice, there's a lot of pre-prep work to do for financial advice, right? You've got to collect all the data. You've got to understand the funds. So let's say, because it's UK, I'm in the UK, so let's say UK. In the UK, there are, I don't know, 10,000 funds, unit trusts you can invest in, right? Being able you to bring the data in and actually build your own IP around understanding investment strategies.
Interesting.
Now, the good thing you could do here, because of LLMs, you could actually use LLMs and query that data. You have to bring that data together to build your own unique investment strategy that you recommend to clients, right? So I don't know, let's say I want to invest in tech, but you can build these little products. You can say to a customer, hey, we've done a bunch of work around understanding the US tech market, and here's our strategy. And you can use LLMs to collect the data, process the data, and actually come up with a strategy and ask it to write, a investment thesis that you can give to clients. And you could do that for 100 different investment theses. Today, to do that by hand will take weeks or months. You could do that in days, right?
Yeah.
You can say, global tech investment, or healthcare investment in public listed companies in the US.
Right.
So today, to do that advice would take weeks or months.
Right.
With Gen AI, you can, as long as you've got the data and you can write the prompts, you can then build all of those products and service offerings and actually provide advice on the back of it. Because once you've got that, you can then, customer says, well, what kind of yields are you getting on healthcare companies with medium-sized 500 million turnover? And what kind of, today to do that would take a bunch of work to actually find the answer, or you just use an LLM, answer that question. Literally,
Amazing.
I mean, you could answer the question in a minute. So that what you're doing is you're actually giving better advice, timely advice, like not in 3 weeks, but in half a day.
Half a day, yeah.
Which then help customers make a better investment decision. So you can do more. You can do significantly more than you'd be able to do.
Makes sense. Okay, this is also a very beginner question for you. When you say you can build this, you can put it into an LLM. For someone like us that are small, are you just talking about a specific tech stack? Like there's tools already built that we can use as our tech stack that can enable us to do this. Or I think for bigger organizations, you're talking about you can build this on your own with a data scientist and an engineer and
yeah. So I mean the basic stuff. So like this financial thing,
right?
To be honest, you can't tailor the financial data at the moment. You could find financial data around companies in the familiar models like GPT or Gemini, but you don't get specific data. So for example, let's say you wanted to get all the transcripts of all of the listed company information and interpret it and come up with a thesis. You won't get that from Gemini, you won't get that from ChatGPT, you won't get it from other ones. That's the work you have to do.
Right. Makes sense.
To start with, basically, you could just use Gemini and say, give me the transcript of give me the 10 transcripts of the last NVIDIA investor calls, and you can ask a bunch of questions, which then the financial analyst will have to do the interpretation of to come up with the strategy.
Makes sense. That's great.
Right?
Super cool. Yeah.
Right.
That clarifies. I feel like now I understand the tactical, okay, this is what we would do and how we would do it. There is a question in the comment section. I think you responded a little bit to it. Let's see what Carlos says. I'm starting a new position on Monday, leading design. Congratulations on your new position, leading design for a small, medium software company, which may or may not have an AI transformation program. Any tips on how to approach the exec leadership from the perspective of what design has to offer? Great. Yeah. And you already commented focus on use cases.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you think about the user experience and think about how you interact with customers, the way you interact with customers is going to change. Yeah. Because the interactions can be more natural, can be more in depth. You can enable a customer to ask a simple question or use a simple app, but at the back end, you can be a hell of a lot more functionally rich to give an answer. So if somebody's asking a question, I mean, a basic example is, I'm in a bank, right? And I want to know my financial information. You can ask basic questions to that today. But what you'll be able to do is actually ask detailed questions and ask analysis questions. So you have to then think about, from a user experience perspective, how do I design the experience to be able to do that? And that's a shift. That's the shift in how to design experience. So the other big one that's going to change is actually tailoring the experience specifically for that individual customer. So before, to do that requires different systems. So let's say you're a high net worth customer. I'm talking about banking, right? So high net worth customer, or a a standard in quotes customer. Today you have to build different systems for that. With this, you could actually tailor the individual experience on, because the system will understand everything about that customer end to end. Now, this goes back to where data comes in. You've got to get all the data sorted out and structure it and use it. But then you can actually create completely tailored user experiences, not just on a chatbot, because everybody talks about chatbots, but actually on an app. Look, you will have an app which is completely tailored to you, which will know about you as an individual and all of the interactions you have with that particular customer. So therefore, that changes the experience. That changes the experience that you could provide to a customer.
Yeah.
Right. But I think you're asking, where do I start? You're in design. You're doing design work. Think about the use cases, given what I've said about, hey, I can now build experiences, whether it's in an app or online or other, or around the customer journeys. I can tailor every single interaction specifically right in the detail for that customer, whether it's an app or a chat or a physical, interaction one-to-one with an individual with data. That is transformational in terms of design, in terms of how you would interact and how you'd build software.
Yeah, that makes sense. Super helpful. Carlos, let us know if that helped answer your question. And a lot of it is, becoming advocates for it, right? Internally. I think that there's going to be a lot of that. Like, I feel like a huge percentage of AI transformation is advocating for it actually happening and showing executives and teams what the capabilities are and what we need to do to get it done. Because what you said earlier is one of the challenges of the bottlenecks is just like people that are slow to adoption. It's kind of this scary, it feels like for a lot of people, it's a scary unknown space. And so, yeah, being well-versed in AI sounds like a good start so that you can be an advocate for it internally. Super helpful. Yeah, this was great. Really informative, really super cool stuff you guys are doing at Kendra Labs. What are the most common companies that you guys work with? Like types of companies, profiles?
To be honest, at the moment, the primary thing is most companies are early, very, very early in terms of where they're transforming. We're seeing, trying to think of examples. Financial services, definitely one. Healthcare seems to be a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Software engineering and software. I mean, I think how to build code is going to change completely. Some of the stuff we're building is actually what I call sysgen rather than codegen, which is system generation. The idea is to get to a point where you can describe what you want to build, and it will build it for you with all the data and the functionality, and deploy it live. Now we haven't got there yet, but that's some of the tooling that we're building.
So can I touch on that for a second? Do you mind?
Of course, yeah, please.
So yeah, a lot of our community, very heavy percentage of our community are designers. We do have a large contingency of engineers, product folks. For engineers, I think this is a point of anxiety, right? So what does this mean for their job, and what, based off of what you know and what you've seen, like what can they do to remain relevant in this stage of transformation?
So I mean, look, we're an AI first company. So Kendra Labs internally, we're doing product work. All the product requirements are done using AI and Gen AI. All of the design work, we're using Figma and other things to actually generate the wireframes and doing the UX work. We still need the people in the loop, right? Your human in the loop doesn't go away. You still need designers who design stuff. It doesn't go away. Yes, maybe in a few years' time, but I think it's a bit of a way. Still need designers to do the brain work. That doesn't go away necessarily. And then we're using that to generate the React code to actually generate the app, right? But you still need people to go and do the work around that. It doesn't go away. So even internally, every part of our software engineering process, we're training everybody to learn to use LLMs in their job and learn how to change their job for that job. So product requirements, as an example. We're producing significantly more product requirements. Something would have taken 2 months to write, we're writing in a day.
Yeah.
So we've got a massive backlog, and then converting that to wireframes, converting that to code is significantly quicker. So you can actually build more a lot faster, right?
Right.
On the design side, if you want to build a bunch of user experiences on an app, well, you can use Gen AI to do that.
Yeah.
And there are tools out there already. You can just say, build me a wireframe for blah, and it'll do it. It'll do it. And you've got to iterate through it. It will build your wireframe. So I would think about, how is your job going to change and how can I be more efficient with it, rather than saying, oh my God, I'm going to be out of a job. Where can you as an individual change the way you work and adapt LLMs to the way what you're doing? That's what you got to think about. Not, my God, I'm going to be out of a job. But and I think that's where every single role needs to think. That's what I'm doing. And everybody I hire internally, the first thing I'm doing is to go and learn about LLMs, go and learn about Gen AI and how it works, and then helping them understand for your job, how is it going to change, and get them to think about how it's going to change to get them more productive, get them more imaginative, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. And there was a previous AI session where we chatted a bit about this as it relates to design, where the biggest risk is designers that kind of stay in that lane of just being a design executor. The way they're going to survive is through cultivating a larger skill set, like you just touched on, in addition to being able to problem solve, and to know. And
So,
there's also, go ahead.
One thing I would learn is go and learn prompt engineering.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
So go to prompting guide. Just type prompting guide on Google, and you'll find that.
Prompting guide.
Yeah, just type prompting guide. It's got promptingguide.ai, and it will tell you how to do prompting. So everybody, including designers, are going to have to learn how to do prompting.
I'm going to put it in the chat.
So go and learn about prompting. Go and learn how it works. Go and learn how to write prompts for your particular job.
Amazing.
And your role. Go and learn about it. I can tell you, I tell all of my team, go and learn about prompting.
That's great.
Go and learn how prompting is going to work. Go and learn how to create prompts and test it. Look, it's free. It's free to use any of the ChatGPT or whatever. Go and test it and see what happens.
Right.
And that will help you iterate through it to get smarter and smarter on how to write prompts. So if you're a designer, how do I build, for example, my tone of voice? I'm making this up, right? But
sure.
How do I build my tone of voice? What does that look like? You can think about prompts you could build, and that could be your IP. You build a series of prompts which are unique to you, which you can say whenever you do a job, you can go and say, hey, I've got my 30 prompts that I go and do to help you do your brand planning.
Sure. Yeah. That makes sense. Oh, that's
your IP.
There you go. Go out and sell it. Becoming good at sales is probably a good one too. That's something we could all probably use more of. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. This was super informative. Let's see, what time is it? 46. We have like 5 more minutes. There's one question that just came in that says, from Ilham says, can you suggest me some useful links, podcasts, or books related to this topic? So I did just drop the prompting guide. That's definitely something to explore. Is there anything else you could share with us?
There's so many resources. I mean, there's so many resources out there.
All right, so how do we not get overwhelmed? I get overwhelmed.
Yeah, so the question really boils down to, what areas are you talking about? Which vertical, which domain, etc. Right? So that's what you got to think about. An honest truth is, just go to gemini.google.com and ask. Go to Perplexity. If you know how to Perplexity, go to perplexity.ai and ask it. And it will tell you. It will tell you the resources.
That's very meta. That's a great way to look at it.
I can give you all the stuff we've got, but actually the reality, all this stuff is available. Go to Perplexity, learn how to do a prompt and ask the prompt in the right way, which will then give you the answers that you want. It'll give you the sources. It will give you the sources. In fact, it'll even give you the answers.
Makes sense. That's a great way to start. Ask AI. Ask AI to help you to learn more about AI.
There you go. Perplexity.ai. It's called Perplexity.ai as well.
Oh, sorry. I've spelled it wrong. Yeah. This isn't some creepy site that I just linked. I didn't check. Okay, sorry. Good.
I spelled it wrong. There you go. That's it there.
Hey, Complexity AI domain is open. Buy that.
Perplexity, it's there. So
got it. Perfect.
The good thing with Perplexity is if you ask it a bunch of questions, it'll actually give you the sources.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah. That's awesome. Yeah.
And the other thing it will do, you can say, create me a program. I'm a designer and I want to learn about Gen AI and how it applies to my job.
Yeah.
Create me a training course with sources of where I can do that training and course materials, and it'll do it.
Wow. That's amazing.
It'll create it for you. So you can actually tailor your own training and sources that way.
So this is better than ChatGPT, do you think? I feel like ChatGPT. Go ahead.
Yeah, so ChatGPT will give you an answer, but Perplexity will give you the sources.
That's the
It'll tell
difference.
you. It will
Like
tell
that.
you the websites. It will tell you
Yeah.
the websites.
Which is actually good, especially for sensitive things like law, accounting, where you sometimes need to back up and make sure that what they're telling you is truthful, because sometimes they're not giving
Yep.
factual answers, right? So that's actually really
Yep.
helpful. I've talked to some researchers about that, actually, how they
Yeah.
need the sources.
And if you're technical, if you're technical at the moment, so I'm just going to find the ARXIV. One of the best sources for research around any of this area is this website, which is Archive. It's called Archive, but it's spelled ARXIV. That has all. So at the moment, most of this stuff is in research. It's early days. There's lots of research papers being published on it, and I get probably 10 to 15 papers a day in this kind of stuff. I can't read them all, but that's a really good place to go to search for your specific domain or experience area to
That's
find
really
papers about talking about this, and it's amazing. It's amazing. I get stuff from that every single day.
love it. Super helpful. From Cornell. Awesome.
It's
And
not. Is it from Cornell? I can't remember.
it
But
says,
it's one of the.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's one of the best archives out there, and lots of people publish papers on that every single day.
Awesome. That's a super helpful one. Thank you for sharing that. Cool. All right. I've got some tools that I need to play around with today in between my sessions. Thank you so much for sharing these.
Fantastic.
Yeah, this was super helpful. I hope you had fun today. This was really interesting. Thank you so much, everyone that joined us, that asked questions, that commented. Super helpful. And yeah, if you want to drop, where can we continue to learn from you? I guess Kendra Labs. I've looked up the website.
Yeah.
Amazing.
You can just type my name in on the web and you'll find me. I'm there. I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. You'll find me. It's fairly easy to find me. There is another chap called Alpesh Toshi who's a gynecologist. You can tell that's not me.
It's not you.
Not me, but apart from that, I'm on the channels. I'm on Twitter, which at Alpesh Toshi on Twitter or X.
Perfect.
LinkedIn is /Alpesh Toshi. If you want to connect, I'm happy to connect, but please say where you.
Yeah,
my
LinkedIn is out of control because of that. I understand. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Alpesh. It was great to meet you, learn from you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. And yeah, enjoy the rest of BeMore if you're going to make it to any other sessions. And thank you so much to everyone that attended.
Thanks for inviting me to speak. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.